South American horned frog. He's a little feisty, as you can tell. He just tried to bite me there. The tub here that he goes in is got moss and a whole bunch of filtered So that was Gamakichi and Gamatatsu. This is Theo's pets. Let me grab one of them and talk about them, shall we? So this is Gamatatsu. He is a Pacman frog or a South American horned frog. So these guys come from the Amazon basin and subtropical woodlands. They're pretty interesting little guys. They're one of the only species of frogs that will actually bite when threatened, which is pretty intimidating when they get about 8 inches. It's actually the only animal in my collection that has bitten me currently. He's bitten me twice, as you saw. We saw once in the beginning of that, and then he got me once when we very first got him and I was transporting him into the cage. So their care is pretty decent. They need a daytime temp of about 75 to 85, which is roughly what most people keep in their house. My reptile room here stays about 82 to 84 in ambient air temperature anyway, so realistically for me these guys are normally about perfect. I do have a heating mat on the side of each of these tanks just in case we need it. However, I've not needed them for these guys, especially because their nighttime temp is also decently accommodatable, which is 65 to 75. So they do need a little bit higher of a humidity, which is 60 to 70%, 80 at the most. I tend to get mine to about 80, which just lets it slowly fizzle out during the day. They need about 4 to 5 inches of coconut fiber substrate to dig into. So once you get that good and moist, their humidity does tend to stabilize out some. So they're opportunistic feeders. They eat just about anything that will move past them. Mice, snakes, lizards, insects of any kind. They also are cannibalistic, so they will eat other Pacman frogs, so I do not advise housing them together whatsoever. In captivity, they live roughly 6 to 10 years, 15 if you take really good care of them. Now you can also begins with an A. I can't remember exactly how to pronounce it, but you can mimic their hibernation cycles, which has had people have them up to 30 years alive in captivity, but if you don't do it properly, it can actually be very damaging to the frog, so I wouldn't actually recommend trying that unless you're experienced. Oh goodness. He's getting a little squirrely here now. These guys, like I said earlier, one of the only one of the only frogs that will bite when threatened. They have an amazing food response, which I'll attach to the end of the video here, some clips of them eating. This guy specifically, at first, would attack the tongs, and I would actually have to bait him into biting at the tong and then quickly move the food into his mouth to get him to eat. So, and I have some clips of that attached in that little segment I'll put at the end there. The other big thing is these guys breathe through their skin. So there's a couple of important things there. One, that is why I'm wearing gloves. I'm not scared that this guy's gonna harm me unless he bites my thumb again. But he's not a poison dart frog, even though they come from the same place. But however, I'm harmful to him. The salts and oils and sweats from your body are actually decently toxic for these guys, as are soaps. And so being that they breathe through their skin, anything they touch gets absorbed into their body. So you have to be very careful with their water quality also, which means filtered, unchlorinated water only. You will notice very quickly if you use tap water, these guys get super lethargic, they quit eating, they just look sick, they'll begin to act sick. And that's from all of the chemicals and whatnot that we put in our tap water, which has a lot of chlorine in most places, especially here by the coast where we try to recycle salt water. So, oops, he's getting a little squirrely, but this guy's gonna top out at roughly 7 to 8 inches, 4 on the smaller side. I do believe the females tend to get a little bigger for this particular species. They come in all sorts of colors. Now I have 2, as you can see from the beginning of the video. Now this is Gamatatsu. He is an albino, so he is green and yellow. I have Gamakichi, who is a little older. He's a strawberry, so he is mostly red, with some lighter red patterning in there. He is actually currently completely buried in the substrate, so we're not going to bother him and get him out. They can do that for a few reasons too. If your temperatures or humidity are wrong, if something startles or stresses them, or if they are in the ambush mode, because these are ambush predators. They are potatoes. They are pretty rocks that scream at you sometimes. Basically, they won't move for days at a time until something walks by that they can eat, and then they'll aggressively attack it and go back to potatoing. So we just redid his cage. He was not using the hide I had in there. So what I did was we took it out, put more coconut fiber, made him a dig mound, which he is now completely burrowed in down to the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this guy here put back in his humidity. Enjoy the clips of him eating. Now I should mention as a disclaimer, these clips of him eating do contain live feeding of insects. I do not live feed any of my animals rodents. I do live feed some insects, crickets and earthworms. They do also eat mealworms, but I do cut the heads off of those. So just be aware if you're triggered by that. So thank you. So real quick before we watch the video of the frogs eating, you'll notice that he got really hoppy and squirrely, and I put him away. Pacman frogs are really not handleable pets. I mentioned at one point earlier in the video that they are really pretty pet rocks that just scream at you sometimes, and accurately so. That's about what they are. They shouldn't really be handled. It's not very good for them. Unlike something like this, which is a corn snake. This is Kakashi. He is 4 years old, so he's full grown. Now colubrids are pretty good about being handled. They can be a little squirrely too, not quite the same. Where the Pacman frog was actively trying to get away from me and was fearful, this guy is just a lot more inquisitive. He will slither around and sniff everything. I mean, as you can see, I'm not even actually holding him. He is holding me. So just a lot more friendly and approachable for a pet. So if you're looking for a pet that's super easy to maintain, you don't need to give it baths really, you don't need to handle it, you really just need to scoop poop and throw some food in there. Pacman frogs are the way to go. They're all, like I said, just amazing pet rocks. But if you're looking for something to handle and play with and interact with a little more, I would probably go a little more this direction, or maybe a bearded dragon. Though in my opinion, bearded dragons are a little more intermediate level reptiles than beginner, but PetSmart will tell you otherwise, and we can do a whole video about that if you want to. Just let me know down below when you like and subscribe, please. Just one other thing, random fun fact. Kakashi here, the corn snake, is more closely related to us than he is to those Pacman frogs. If you trace the evolutionary tree, we have closer common ancestors with these guys than these guys do with those frogs. Crazy, right? So, the more you know. Oh, one more thing. Once again, you're about to see some live feeding of insects to these frogs. I'm going to do some information on how I'm setting it up in the beginning. So there is me cutting the heads off of superworms. There is me cutting earthworms in half, and then there are live feeding of earthworms and crickets. So once again, if any of those things will be a little triggering to you, go ahead and turn off the video, and I apologize, but at least I did give you a decent warning. And once again, we never feed live rodents. We haven't had to yet. We do a rehabilitation program, so we haven't had one that we've had to feed live yet, but any we do, we will transition to frozen thawed. So, but we will never do that on camera. So, live insects only. So, thank you guys and enjoy. Alright, so we tried to feed the two Pacman frogs some superworms. Now, one of them ate one. The other ate about half of one. I do believe I lost that video clip. So what we're going to do now to try to feed them is night crawlers. So the first one I have Gamatatsu. He's still a baby. So this looks like two night crawlers, but it is actually one cut in half. The larger one here is going to be for Gamakichi, the new guy, though he seems to be about juvenile size. So let's see how this works out, shall we? Alright, so these are night crawlers that I got from Walmart in the fishing section. This is filtered chlorine-free water. Now that is super important because these guys breathe through their skin with a word that I can't remember at the second that we should all probably add to our vocabularies. And so any chemicals or whatnot that they treat and put in our drinking water, which you probably shouldn't be drinking either, is really bad for these frogs. So we definitely have to clean this in very clean and sanitary water. So let's go see who wants it. So what we're doing here is we're about to feed some Pacman frogs. So today I'm actually going to give them some superworms, which are more like a treat for them, not an everyday staple item. Hey, can I have Karna? Hey, thank you. Karna, can I have these? Thank you. It's more like a treat item than a staple food item. They really need to be eating crickets. Let's turn some light on and see. Gut-lighted crickets, dubia roaches are best for their staple. But every once in a while for a treat, you can do superworms. Now, I like to cut the heads off of them. They do get a little squirrely for these guys. So what I use is fingernail cat clippers and just kind of guillotine them out of the cage here, as you see. And then just boop. There they all are. Where you going? So I've got two guys we're going to feed today. However, one of them is new and he ate about 5 crickets the day I got him. He's a little larger, so he doesn't eat every day from my understanding. He didn't eat yesterday, so I'm going to try to feed him today. So I'm only going to cut a few of these. That's gross, I need to go clean that.